The quantum displacement engines hummed their familiar bass note through the hull of the Meridian Exodus, a sound Louis Chen had grown accustomed to over 3 years of deep space diplomatic missions. He stood in the observation deck, watching the swirling chromatic distortions of subspace fold around the vessel like oil on water. His reflection in the reinforced transparent aluminum showed a man who'd aged beyond his 32 years, stress lines etched around dark eyes, hair prematurely threading with silver at the temples. Behind him, through the open archway, he could hear his wife Anna's voice, not her human voice, but the guttural, clicking harmonics of High Draconic, the ancient language of the Saurisapian collective, one of the 3 dominant powers in the Orion sector. Most humans couldn't distinguish Draconic from the ambient mechanical sounds of a starship. Most humans had never bothered to learn it. Louis was not most humans. Krester Val Humankin Zethamok, Anna's voice carried across the observation deck, her words sharp with contempt. The human husband proves himself a fool again. Louis's jaw tightened, but he didn't turn. He kept his eyes fixed on the viewport, on the impossible geometries of faster-than-light travel, even as the words landed like precision strikes against his composure. Anna was addressing Commander Vexthalion, the Saurisapian military attaché who joined them 3 weeks ago at the Kepler 442 relay station. Louis had noticed the way Vexthalion's vertical pupils tracked Anna's movements, the subtle dilation that indicated Saurisapian attraction. He'd noticed, and he'd said nothing. Sormesh Kalin, Vexthalion's deep rumble carried a note of curiosity. How so? Anna's laugh was like broken glass, beautiful and dangerous. Vakesh na linguistic comprehension, base form cognition. When I discuss the Tau Ceti accords in Draconic during diplomatic sessions, he sits there nodding like a decorative primate, understanding nothing. Louis's fingers curled against the cold surface of the viewport. He'd learned High Draconic during his doctoral research in xenolinguistics at the Ganymede Institute, spending 4 years immersed in the language's 7 tonal registers and complex grammatical matrices. He'd published 3 papers on the semantic evolution of Draconic power structures in language. One of those papers had caught the attention of the diplomatic corps, which had led to his recruitment, which had led to meeting Anna. Anna, who was not fully human. The official records listed her as Anna Voss, human diplomat born on Europa Colony, educated at the Titan Conservatory. The unofficial truth, the classified truth that Louis had discovered only after their marriage, was far more complex. Anna was a hybrid, the result of illegal genetic engineering that combined human-based stock with Saurisapian DNA. She possessed the cognitive architecture of both species, could shift between human and draconic thought patterns with fluid ease. It made her the perfect diplomat, capable of understanding both sides of any negotiation at a fundamental, neurological level. It also made her something else, someone caught between 2 worlds, belonging fully to neither. Meshkala Torvesh diplomatic necessity, Anna continued, her tone dismissive. The consortium requires human representatives for political optics. Louis provides that, a human face for human-dominated worlds, but functionally, he is cargo, decorative cargo that occasionally offers primitive insights. Through the viewport, Louis watched a micro-singularity bloom and collapse in the subspace currents, its birth and death occurring in the span of a nanosecond. He thought about the fundamental nature of translation, how meaning existed in the spaces between words, how understanding required not just vocabulary but cultural context, emotional resonance, the weight of unspoken history. He thought about the 37 diplomatic sessions he'd attended beside Anna over the past year, how he'd sat silently while she negotiated mining rights with draconic trade princes, territorial boundaries with Saurisapian fleet admirals, technology exchanges with their research syndicates, how he'd nodded at appropriate moments, smiled his human smile, played the role of supportive spouse while comprehending every syllable, every subtle shift in tonal register, every linguistic power play. He'd understood it all. "Vo humankin possess value beyond symbolic function?" Vexthalion asked. There was a pause. Lewis could imagine Anna tilting her head in that particular way she had, almost human, almost Saurisapian, entirely neither. "Limited," she said finally. "He provides biological companionship. Humans possess certain recreational qualities. The emotional bonding satisfies residual human aspect programming in my neural architecture, but intellectually, strategically, he is a pet who happens to hold a doctorate." Lewis closed his eyes. The quantum engines thrummed. Somewhere in the vast machinery of the ship, a cooling system cycled, and the temperature dropped half a degree. He'd married Anna 18 months ago on Callisto, in a ceremony that blended human and Saurisapian traditions. He'd promised to honor her, support her, stand beside her as she navigated the impossible complexities of interspecies diplomacy. He'd meant every word. She'd promised the same. He'd believed her. "Does the human husband suspect your true assessment?" Vexthalion's question carried layers of meaning, concern, calculation, perhaps even an offer. "Impossible," Anna replied with certainty. "Lewis lacks the cognitive framework for draconic linguistic processing. His xenolinguistic credentials are theater, simplified trade pigeon at best. The sophistication of high draconic, the conceptual matrices embedded in grammatical structure, the way meaning shifts across tonal registers. These require neural architecture he simply doesn't possess." I could discuss his inadequacies in front of him in any of the 17 draconic dialects, and he would smile and nod, understanding nothing. Lewis opened his eyes. In the viewport's reflection, he saw Anna and Vexthalion approaching from behind, their forms distorted slightly by the transparent aluminum's defensive field harmonics. "Then perhaps," Vexthalion said, his tone careful, "there is room for alternative arrangements. When we reach the Draconis Prime negotiations next month, the Saurisapian delegation will require a liaison who truly comprehends our position, someone with authentic draconic cognition." "You offer yourself as replacement." Anna's voice carried amusement. "I offer partnership, true partnership, not the symbolic charade you maintain with the human." Lewis turned. They both froze. Anna's hybrid features, human enough to pass casual inspection but with subtle tells that those who knew what to look for could identify, registered surprise. Vexthalion's scaled face remained impassive, but his tail, which extended from beneath his formal diplomatic robes, twitched once. "Lewis," Anna said, switching instantly to flawless English, her accent carrying just a hint of Europa's clipped vowels. "I didn't realize you were here. The commander and I were discussing the upcoming negotiations." "Krester Val Zethmoranesh," Lewis said in perfect high draconic, his tonal register pitched to convey formal greeting with an undertone of challenge. "Meshkala Torvesh diplomatic necessity, Valkresh. I understand more than you imagine, wife." Anna's pupils dilated. For the first time in their marriage, Lewis saw genuine shock cross her features. "You," she began in English, then stopped. "Vo human husband possess linguistic comprehension," Lewis continued in Draconic, his accent carrying the academic precision of formal study rather than native fluency, but unmistakably competent. "Doctoral specialization, Ganymede Institute, 4 years immersion, 3 published papers on Draconic semantic evolution. Perhaps the diplomatic record requires review." Vexthalion's tail lashed once twice. "Deception," he hissed in Draconic. "You allowed her to believe." "I allowed nothing," Lewis interrupted, his tone sharp. "Anna made assumptions, I observed. In xenolinguistics, we call this participant observation. In marriage, some might call it discovering one's true value to their partner." Anna's face had gone pale beneath her hybrid skin tones. "Lewis, I can explain." "Explanation implies misunderstanding," Lewis said, still in Draconic, the language giving his anger a crystalline structure, each syllable precisely carved. I understand perfectly. I have understood for months. Every diplomatic session, every private conversation you believed I couldn't comprehend, every assessment of my worth, my intelligence, my function. He paused, switching to English. Every lie. The observation deck's ambient lighting shifted as the Meridian Exodus began its deceleration sequence, preparing to drop from subspace into normal space. The quantum engine's hum changed pitch, ascending toward the threshold of human hearing. "How long?" Anna whispered. "How long have I known Draconic? Since before we met. How long have I been listening? Since you started speaking it around me, assuming I was too stupid to understand." Lewis's voice was level, clinical even, the same tone he'd used defending his dissertation. 18 months of marriage. 14 months of you discussing my inadequacies with various Draconic officials. 6 weeks of you entertaining Commander Vexthalian's increasingly obvious interest. Vexthalian shifted his weight, his clawed hand moving toward the ceremonial blade at his side, not a threat, but a nervous gesture. "Humankin possess unexpected depths," he said in Draconic, almost respectfully. "Humankin possess the capacity for patience," Lewis replied, "for observation, for understanding that true intelligence lies not in immediate reaction but in comprehensive analysis." He turned back to the viewport, watching as the chromatic distortions began to fade, reality reasserting itself as the ship dropped toward normal space. A blue-white star appeared in the distance, Sigma Draconis, their destination, where the next round of trilateral negotiations would determine mining rights across 14 star systems. "I've prepared a comprehensive report," Lewis said in English, his voice quiet. "Every diplomatic session I've attended, every conversation conducted in Draconic in my presence. Complete translations, contextual analysis, assessment of negotiating positions, identification of leverage points the Saurisapian delegation attempted to conceal. It's all there." Anna's breath caught. "Lewis, I've transmitted it to Diplomatic Corps headquarters. They should receive it approximately 4 hours after we dock at Sigma Draconis Station." He glanced over his shoulder at her. "I've also filed for dissolution of our marriage contract under Diplomatic Corps Regulation 7 Alpha, irreconcilable differences stemming from fundamental dishonesty. The genetic engineering documentation I discovered in your sealed medical files will be part of the evidentiary package." "You're destroying my career," Anna said flatly. "I'm revealing the truth. There's a difference." Lewis turned fully to face them both. "Your hybrid nature isn't the issue. The Diplomatic Corps needs people like you. Your abilities are invaluable, but your assumption that everyone around you is intellectually inferior, your willingness to deceive not just the people you negotiate with but the person you married, that's the problem." He walked toward the archway, toward the corridor that would lead him back to his quarters. At the threshold he paused. "For what it's worth," he said in Draconic, his tone shifting to convey genuine sorrow, "I loved you. The human part of me loved the human part of you. I thought we were partners. I was wrong." "Lewis," Anna's voice broke between languages, human emotion fracturing Draconic grammar. "The upcoming negotiations," Lewis continued, ignoring her. "The Saurisapian delegation is planning to leverage the Antares incident to claim exclusive rights to the Sigma Draconis asteroid belt. They have documentation proving human mining vessels violated the Neutral Zone Treaty 3 months ago. It's in my report. The Diplomatic Corps can prepare accordingly." Vexthalian scales rippled, anger, shock, betrayal. "You would violate diplomatic confidence." "I would ensure fair negotiations," Lewis corrected, "which is what my position as diplomatic attaché requires. Unlike some, I take my responsibilities seriously." He switched back to English one final time, looking directly at Anna. "I'll be transferring to the Diplomatic Corps Xenolinguistics Division. They've offered me a position analyzing intercepted communications. Apparently, my primitive insights have value to people who don't assume human means inferior. The Meridian Exodus shuddered slightly as it completed its transition to normal space. Through the viewport, Sigma Draconis Station appeared in the distance, a vast ring of habitats and docking facilities orbiting the star, home to 17 different species, all trying to coexist in the impossible complexity of interstellar politics. Lewis walked away from his wife, from the commander, from the marriage that had been built on assumptions and lies. Behind him, he heard Anna begin to cry, a sound that was neither fully human nor fully Saurisapian, but something caught between, expressing grief in a language that had no translation. He didn't look back. In xenolinguistics, he'd learned that the most important words were often the ones left unspoken, the meanings that existed in silences and absences. As he walked the corridors of the Meridian Exodus, Louis Chen understood that sometimes the smartest thing a supposedly stupid person could do was simply listen, understand, and wait for the right moment to speak. That moment had come. And in 17 different Draconic dialects, the word for goodbye shared a common root with the word for liberation. Louis had chosen his words carefully.